Hello and welcome back to this third video, which will be following along with the University of Helsinki's massive open online course. This time we're going to be looking at user inputs, which is part 3. So let's get on and see how we do. Reading input. Remember to check your points from the ball on the bottom right hand corner of the material. Let's have a look. So we've earned 22 points on quizzes so far. We've done 10% or have 10% worth of the points for the programming exercises. So as we go through, they'll of course increase. Okay, let's go down to reading input, number 3. Input refers to text written by the user, read by the program. Input is always reading as a string. For reading input, we use the scanner tool that comes with Java. The tool can be imported for use in the program by adding the comment import java.util.scanner before the beginning of the main program's frame or public class. So I'll show you where that is. So an easier way maybe to describe that is to say it comes just after the package. Quite often in Java projects, when you start to create your own, there will be a package at the top like this. We're using the default package here, you can see. And the imports come just after the package, but before the public class or the start of the class. And that's really the only thing that's allowed outside of the class. If we head back to reading input. So the tool itself is created with the command scanner, and then scanner equals new scanner, and then 2 parentheses followed by system.in. The wording here, I'll go through that just a bit to give you a bit more information. So a scanner is a class, and that's why it's got a capital letter. The second use of the word scanner here is the name that we're giving it, the reference to the object. We can call it whatever we want, and in this example the word SC is the name of our scanner, the object. So if we want to take a user input and store it in a string, for example, we could say string name equals sc, because that's the name of our scanner, dot next line. Okay, but the scanner can be called anything we want. It doesn't have to be called scanner. I think if you see that scanner equals new scanner, it might be a little bit confusing. But you could literally call it anything. You can call it Duncan if you want. That's absolutely not a problem at all. So I'm going to delete that line. If we head back to here. Below is an example of a program which asks for user input. Read the string entered by the user and then print it. So here we've got the scanner object that they've created. They've called theirs scanner. Here we've got a user prompt asking the user to write a message. And then here they've created a string called message, and they're storing the next line of input in that message, and then they're printing it out. So if we head back to TMC Netbeans, I can give you an example. So we can use our sout, or in fact we don't need to because we've already got this written here. So let's just add in a string. So we could say string, we can call ours message as well, equals, so we'll be doing scanner.next line, like that. And then we can print out the message as well. So to print out a variable, we don't need the double quotes, we just need the parentheses, and then there you can see I've just typed a message in between the parentheses. If we play that now, rather than submit it, we should see at the bottom a prompt. So there we go, write a message. I'll just zoom in on that a little bit. Hello world. So we can write hello world, there you go, and it prints it out for us. We can run it again. We can write hello YouTubers. Anything you want can be written in there, and it will save that data and then print it back out for us. So let's see what's next. More precisely, input is read with the scanner tool's next line method. The call scanner next line is left waiting for the user to write something. When user writes something and presses enter, the provided string is assigned to a string variable, in this case message. The program is then able to reference the variable message later on. In the example above, the variable message is referenced in the print command. When the program is run, its output can look like the example below. In this example, the user has written hello world. User input is marked with a red line. So when we ran our example earlier, I wrote in hello world, and then we got the hello world printout again. You can test it a bit more if you want, or make it a bit more user-friendly or obvious what's being printed out. So we can use some double quotes and a plus, and then put in there your message is. And then if we play that now, always remember to click down here on the console, otherwise you're right up here in your source code. So I could say, please subscribe. There you go. And then there's your message, please subscribe. Lovely. So the video below shows the process of making a program that reads user input. Watch the video before doing the next programming exercise. Take special notice of how the user input is provided to the output window located at the bottom of TMC as the program is running. If you do watch the video, just to forewarn you, it's not in English. But hopefully my explanation that I've given you helps. Here we go with our next exercise, so the one called message here. Write a program that asks the user to write a string. When the user has provided a string, i.e. written some text and pressed the enter key, the program should print the string that was provided by the user. The exercise template comes with a program template that includes the creation of a scanner tool, so we don't have to create it ourselves. Write output for when the user writes by. So write a message, there we go. And then example output for when the user writes once upon a time. So we won't actually need to change the code for these two sample outputs, it will still be the same. So now we can head back to our Netbeans, our TMC Netbeans. And what I will do is just delete this line here. And what you need to do is just make sure that you've got your systemout.println, your S out. Make sure it has write a message written in there. And the next thing to do is to create a string. So notice that's got a capital S. And then give the string variable a name. So I've called my message. And then write scanner.next with a lowercase n, and then line with a capital L, and open and close parentheses, followed by a semicolon on the end of the line. The last thing that we need to add in is just a simple S out. We need to delete the double quotes, and then in there we're going to write message, message being our variable name here. And when we test that, so if we press play and write by, you can see it repeats out. So that should be fine. I'm happy to submit that now and see how we've done. Fantastic, so another one passed. Remember to complete your tick boxes here, your submission here, and then we can close this down, right click, close, and go back to the course here on our browser. Next up, let's take a step back and examine what on earth string message equals even means. As you might have noticed, in programming we refer to strings rather than text. The term string is shorthand for string of characters, which describes how the computer sees text on a more fundamental level, as a sequence of individual characters. We've so far used strings in two ways. When practicing the print command, we passed a string to be printed to the print command in quotation marks, and when practicing reading input, we save the string we read to a variable. In practice, variables are named containers that contain information of some specified type and have a name. A string variable is declared in a program by stating the type of variable, string, and its name, or myString for example. Typically, a variable is also assigned a value during its declaration. You can assign a value by following a declaration with an equal sign, followed by the value and a semicolon. A string variable called message that is assigned the value hello world is declared like this. So we've got string with a capital S, the reference word, message, and then the actual string that's being stored in the message, hello world, and that's surrounded by double quotes. When a variable is created, a specific container is made available within the program. the contents of which can later be referenced. Variables are referenced by their name. For instance, creating and printing a string variable is done as shown below. So they've expanded on the example above and put in a system.out.print, and then inside there they've written the word message, so that will print whatever's stored in this variable here, which happens to be hello world. A string enclosed in a programming language's quotation marks is called a string literal, i.e. a string with a specified value. A common programming mistake is trying to put quotation marks around variable names. If there were quotation marks around the string variable message, the program would print the text message instead of hello world. So I can show you an example here. So if we head back to our Netbeans, I'll just go to our sandbox. Okay, so I'll leave one of the system outs there. So we can just write a quick string here. So string, I'll just put name equals Duncan, semicolon on the end of the line. And normally we would remove the quotation marks, but if I run this, instead of printing out the variable, it will print out the word name. Okay, so to print the variable out, we must remember to remove the quotes within our system.out.print. So if I run that now, you can see it prints my name, Duncan. Let's head back to the course. Concatenation, joining strings together. The string to be printed can be formed from multiple strings using the plus operator. For example, the program below prints hello world on one line. So you can see here we've got two string literals, so the words and the quotes separated by a plus. The same method can be used to join a string literal and the value of a string variable. So here we've got our message, and then adding on a string literal on the end there. We can do the same with any number of strings. So here they've got two strings, and then they're printing them both out together in this example here. Hi, Ada Lovelace exercise. The exercise template contains the following program. Modify the program so that it prints the contents of the variable name and the printed text is followed in its full form. So it needs to print out Hi, Ada Lovelace. Let's head back to our Netbeans and then open the Hi, Ada Lovelace test here. And so what we need to do is concatenate the name with a hi as well. So all we need to do is write a system out, and then we can write hi with a space plus name. Let's just double check that's right. So it needs to print, there we go. So when using the system.out.print line command, do not pass the string Ada Lovelace as a parameter, instead use the existing variable name. Okay, so let's give that a run and see how we did. Okay, so I failed this one, but this is a good example of the sort of output you can expect if you do fail. And down here we can see that they expected to see Hi, Ada Lovelace with an exclamation mark, but I didn't include the exclamation mark. So if we go back up here to our system.out, we can add on another plus, double quotes, and then in between double quotes we can add the exclamation mark and press submit, and hopefully this time we should pass. Excellent, and we passed that one as well. So fill out your feedback and then get that sent off, and we can go back to the course, refresh for our points. You don't have to refresh every time, just if you want to check that they are there, you can, of course. The reader.nextLine command reads the user's input and returns a string. If we then want to use the string in the program, it must be saved to a string variable. So here we've got the example string message equals scanner.nextLine. A value saved to a variable can be used repeatedly. In the example below, the user input is printed twice. So we can see here this is extending on the previous example, and then here they've just printed it out twice. So this will be printed twice. So that is the first system out, and then the second one is this one here. On to our next challenge. Write a program that asks the user to write a string. When the user has given a string, that is, written some text and pressed enter, the program must print the user's string 3 times. You can use the system.out.println command multiple times. The exercise template already includes the code that creates the scanner tool. Okay, so if we head back to our Netbeans, I can close the Ada Lovelace exercise, and then we can open this message 3 times one. Let's see what we've got. So we've got our scanner, as they said, and we've got a user prompt here. So we need somewhere to store the input from the user, so we definitely need a string. So we can just call it user input equals, and then it will be scanner dot next line, like that. The string name, just with the scanner name, can be anything you want. So we can call that Dave if you want. So it can literally be anything. It doesn't have to be. I mean, it's a good idea if it references what it's for. So user input makes more sense than having it as Dave. So now we can do our system outs. So if we just type in here user input, if we go to the end of our line, instead of copying and paste it, if we hold down Control Shift on our keyboard and press up on the arrows, we can print it out 3 times like that. So it's another quite useful shortcut. So let's submit that and see how we do. Excellent, and that's passed as well. So let's close this one down. So that's number 7, message 3 times. Let's close that and then head back to the course and see which is next. I'll just refresh this for my points. There we go, excellent. Input string as part of an output. So we're going to be using concatenation here by the looks of it. So we've got our first part, which is our string literal, and then our second part, which is going to be some sort of user input. We noticed in the Hi Ada Lovelace exercise that string literals and string variables can be joined using the plus operator. The example below demonstrates a program that takes a user input and prints it concatenated with a string literal. So the prompt is write something. We wrote this, and then it concatenates it and prints it out. So the challenge is to write a program that prompts the user for their name with the message, what's your name? When the user has written their name, the program has to print hi followed by the user's name. Okay, right, let's go back to our Netbeans, go to greeting, open that up. Right, so we have our scanner for us already sorted. So what we need first is the prompt. So the prompt is going to be what's your name. So we've got a capital W, your name, followed by a question mark. Then we're going to need to store the user's input in a string variable. So string user input equals scanner dot next line, and then we need to do concatenation. So I believe it said what's your name. So we just need to add the word hi and then the user input, and that should be it. So we will put hi, add a space, put our plus sign in, and then add the variable user input. So if we get that one submitted, excellent, another one passed. So we'll just OK that, close our project here on the left and head back to the online course. When the program's execution comes a statement that attempts to read input from the user, the command reader.nextLine, the execution stops and waits. The execution continues only after the user has written some input and pressed enter. In the example below, the program prompts the user for 3 strings. First, the program writes, write the first thing, and then waits for an input. When the user writes some text, the program prints, write the second string, and then waits for input again. This continues for a 3rd time, after which the program prints all 3 strings. So we can see here that they've been broken down almost into 2-line blocks. So we've got our first prompt, and then a string called first, which stores the input. Our second block, with a string called second that stores the input, and the example continues here on the third example. And then when we come to print them out, we've got an sout with a string literal and then our 3 string variables. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Programming exercise conversation. Write a program that works as follows. So we need to print this line out as the prompt, then print out another prompt, and then a final thing here. So I'm going to copy this code, or sorry, I'm going to copy this text and just paste it in my Netbeans. There we go, and we'll paste that code in here. And it doesn't matter where, because we're going to delete it before we run it anyway. So the first thing we need is a system out that says greetings, how are you doing? So rather than worrying about all the spellings and the grammatical inputs there, I'm just going to copy and paste it in, and then we don't need to worry, we know it's exactly correct. Okay, so now we've got greetings, how are you doing? We need a string to store the first user input. So we can follow the naming convention that they used at first. So equals scanner.next line, and then open and close parentheses and a semicolon. Then the second one is going to be this one here. So that's oh, how interesting, tell me more. Paste that in. And then we need another string. So we've already used the word first, so we can't use that one. So we'll call this one second. And then we'll say it's equal to the input from the scanner. And then the last one is thanks for sharing. So just while I'm doing that, I'm going to delete this bit as well. And that's it actually. So there's only the 2 inputs that we need. So let's give that a little test and see how we do. Excellent, and that's passed. So let's fill out our feedback here and get that sent off. Close our project here, head back to the website, to the web page, sorry, and let's move on. In the previous example, we saved the user input to 3 different string variables. This can be done as long as the variables all have different names. In the example, the names are first, second, and third. In our example, we use first and second. We can form more complicated texts whose contents changes depending on the user's input by using more strings. In the example below, the user is told a bit more about the texts they wrote. Notice that the order in which the strings are printed can be changed. In the example below, the third input string is printed first. So here we've got our variables, so the first one, the second one, and the third one, but it prints the third one first, then the second one, and then the first one, and then prints them out all together here. The example output might align wrong on narrow displays if you're using only a limited portion of the browser window, or your display is otherwise very narrow. Try to stretch this display horizontally to see if the texts align differently. The exercise expects the text to align as it does on wider displays. Write a program that asks the user for a character's name and their job. The program then prints a short story. The output must be shown as below. The name and job depend on the user's input. Okay, so I will tell you a story, but I need some information first. What is the main character called? So that's going to be our first sout. So let's open up story. We can paste that in. So notice at the end of the line we've got this backslash and n. That inserts a new line for us. And then we've got this plus here, the concatenation. So if I just give that a quick test, you should see that it will print out over 2 lines. There we go. So we've got our first prompt, that's brilliant. What we need now is a string to store the answer in. So we can call this one a string name, and it's equal to scanner.nextLine and a semicolon. We head back to here, let's see, what is their job? So let's just quickly copy this. And then I'll copy this text as well, just so we don't have to keep switching backwards and forwards. Okay, so the next prompt is going to be what is their job. So we'll just copy this, paste that in there. So because that's a prompt, we're going to need somewhere to store the job. So we can call this one string job. Say it's equal to scanner.next line, like that. And then the last thing is to print out this story. So we can do sout, copy that in there. Here is the story. We can use \n if we want, like this, or you can use separate system.out.prints, that's fine. Okay, so once upon a time there was Bob, who was a builder. So this is where our concatenation is going to come in. So if we get ready to take out Bob here, and we need to put a plus in, name, and then a plus. Who was a builder. So we need to get rid of the builder bit. So we'll close that off with a double quote, put a plus in, and then we need to add in the string variable job. Okay, and then another plus on the end. Okay, so if we put a plus on the end, whoops, press enter, we can then add these last bits in. Oops, if we put the plus on the new line, just so it follows the one above, add our double quotes in, and then let's paste this line in. On the way to work, Bob reflected on his life. So here's another area where we need to put the string variable in. So let's start by deleting Bob, put a double quote in to close this first section off, put a plus in, then the string variable name, another plus, and quotes, and you can see that the variables are in black and the string literals are in orange. Go to the end of this line, press enter again for the last line, and then so on this last line it looks like there's two variables again. So let's add in the double quote, replace Bob with name. Oh, forgot to put my pluses in. There we are. Will not be a, so builder again, we've got the job there, so let's close that off with a quote, double quote, a plus, job, plus, double quote, and then we can just bring that up to this line here. So let's just give that one a run before we submit it and make sure it works correctly. I will tell you a story, but I need some information first. What is the main character called? So we'll say Duncan. What is their job? I'm a teacher. And here is the story. Once upon a time there was Duncan. Ah, right, okay. So what I've got here, if you notice, there's no space in between A and teacher. So here we need to put a space in. And then on this line here, we need to put a space in as well. I need to put one there. Duncan reflected on his life. Perhaps Duncan will not be a teacher forever. There we go. Let's give that another run. There we go, so that looks a bit better. So once upon a time there was Duncan, who was a teacher. On the way to work, Duncan reflected on life. Perhaps Duncan will not be a teacher forever. So I'm just wondering if we need a full stop on the end of this first line. So I'm going to go back to the course here, and there is a full stop. So let's just go back to TMC, add in a plus, put the full stop on. Bro, let's give that a submit and see how we get on. So this has failed. So if we look at the bottom, it says output was expected to contain 7 lines. Now it contained 5. So let's just double check. I'm going to move my display to the left like this. So to do that, I just press the Windows key and the left arrow on my keyboard. So let's see. So here's the story. So we've got, here is the story. Once upon a time, there was a builder. there's a full stop. So let's put a new line in for each of these and just make sure that that's correct. Let's give that a play and see how that works. So the code's written out. We've done one system out per line, added in the string variables with the string literals as well. So let's give that a test and see what we get back. Okay, so we've got an error again. Let's have a look. Let's see. Ah, right. Okay. So if we look here at the expected output, we've got who was a builder. So here on my code, where I've got the word a written, I reckon if we delete that and submit it again, we'll either pass or it'll move us on to another error. Hopefully we'll just pass. Actually, thinking about it, he will not be a builder forever, so put that in there as well, change that one, sorry. Let's get that submitted and see what happens. Excellent, so we've passed. One thing that you will notice that I've changed as well is I've removed the \ends and replaced them with system.out.print lines. My thinking behind that is that we haven't been shown \n, so that's probably not expected as part of the solution. So as good as this course is, this is a slight negative. The exercise has to be exactly as it is on their web server, otherwise it won't pass. So the \n does a similar sort of job to a system.out, but not the way that the University of Helsinki wanted it done or completing. So that's another reason why I'm doing these courses, especially for new programmers. When you're submitting an exercise that you believe is correct and you don't know why it's coming back with an error, hopefully by me going through it, he's got a little bit more experience, I can help you troubleshoot it and give you sort of a different perspective, a different way to look at the results, and like I say, hopefully help you guys out. So right, I'm going to submit that one. We can close this off and head back to the web page, maximize this back up again. Okay, so that one's done. We can refresh that. Like I say, you don't need to do it every time. And now we're moving on to variables. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see me continue doing videos. That would be super helpful. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.